In studio, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican out of South Carolina, fresh off a trip to Israel. And now back, like you, wondering what today's meeting at the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu and Barack Obama will be about. Senator, it's always great to have you in studio.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. We went to Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, and Afghanistan. It was one heck of a trip.
Wow. And how many days?
5 days, 6 countries. A typical McCain-Codell. You can't have 2 meals in the same country.
You just keep moving.
Yeah, he's a hard guy. He's a restless dude.
Right. And I guess when you got your own plane, you can make your own decisions.
Well, we had a good group. We had 5 of us.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
First off, in Iran, you believe that the Senate, to a degree, had something to do with what the president included in his speech to AIPAC. What do you mean?
Well, the president said that containing a nuclear-armed Iran was off the table. That was music to my ears because I think that's a losing strategy. There's a bipartisan resolution. Senator Casey, Blumenthal, myself, Lieberman, a bunch of Hoven, AI, a bunch of Democrats and Republicans, Menendez, so it's a really impressive group, are saying that it is the policy of the United States. The Senate is saying it should be the policy of the United States not to try to contain a nuclear-capable Iran because we believe it would lead to proliferation of nuclear weapons throughout the region, and it would be a matter of time before they shared the technology with terrorists. If you can get 80 to 90 senators saying that, and now you got the president, that means you got 2 options left to stop them from nuclear capability. One is sanctions, which I hope will work, but will only work if they believe the military option is real, and the other is military action.
Nobody's looking for a war. We just got a reality.
Well, let me tell you about
war and a 10-year war.
Let me tell you about a war with Iran. We got 40,000 troops within probably 200 miles of the Iranian border. They could hit our air bases with rockets, Hezbollah cells. They could do a lot of damage, but they could only do it once. They could throw a punch. We will take it, and we will knock them out. Military action now is probably going to have to be bold and decisive. We've let this program go too long. The more we talk with Iran, the more they enrich uranium. The longer we engage in sanctions, their economies hurt, but they're not stopping their nuclear program. The UN said today that they cannot certify that they're not acquiring a nuclear capability for a weapon. Clearly they are.
By the way, the UN is further more aggressive than the U.S.
Here's my first rule. If the UN doesn't believe you, I shouldn't believe you. Because it's a hard sell to get the UN on board for believing the worst about people. But when their rhetoric, they hid the second enrichment site, they're supporting Hezbollah, Hamas. They tried to kill the Saudi Arabian ambassador in Washington, D.C. in a public restaurant. The government of Iran did. When you deal with people like this, you got to assume the worst. So here's what's left.
And Senator Graham, let me just add something.
Yeah.
How many of our guys were killed by Iranian agents, either training or actually killing our guys in Iraq?
The EFPs, the improvised, these copper-laden
IEDs on steroids.
They all came from Iran. They trained the Shia militias that attacked us in Iraq. They're up to no good in Afghanistan. So the bottom line is, if we hit them militarily, they could respond against our bases and our interests around the world. But their nuclear program is matured now. So what I would suggest is that if we have to hit them, sink their Navy, shoot down their Air Force, punish the Revolutionary Guard, destroy the ability of the Ayatollahs to have an offensive capability. It will no longer be just about a few nuclear sites. It would be about taking the regime's offensive capability down and out and leaving them exposed to their own people.
Can you imagine a world where Hamas and Hezbollah loses their financing and doesn't exist?
Can you imagine a world where Syria is broken away from Iran and Assad is thrown over and conservative people take over, but they want to live in a modern society? I just got back from Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood won a big part of the election. They have an agenda that we need to watch. It's not what they say, it's what they do. How do they write the Constitution? Do they put women back into darkness, or do they allow a conservative Islamic republic to develop where women can have a say, where Coptic Christians are safe, and we can do business? I hope so. It's
but
a
you
work
don't
in
know.
progress.
You were there and you
know.
still don't know.
I believe in watching and verifying based on actions, but it would be nice and great for the world if this Arab Spring developed into a system of free markets and conservative religious governments that women could tolerate and we could live with. And at the end of the day, isolating Iran is best achieved by taking a side out. Right. I don't want a war. I know what it would entail, but here's what would happen if we let Iran get a nuclear weapon. all hell would break loose on the nuclear front in the Mideast, and it would be a matter of time before terrorists got hold of their technology. So one scenario opens Pandora's box, a military strike. If they get nuclear capability, you empty Pandora's box. President Obama needs to understand history is moving fast here, and talking is not working. And do you want on your resume, Mr. President, on my watch, the Iranians developed a nuclear weapon?
And do you believe the Israelis don't know the answer to that question?
I think the Israelis are not going to rely upon us unilaterally. They're going to never lose control of their own destiny. They're not going to let the window close on their ability to slow down the Iranian nuclear program militarily. Do they want a war with Iran? Absolutely not. Do they want sanctions to work? Absolutely.
Well, what I look for to see if something's going to get done, doesn't even matter what I think. I want to know if it's going to get done. I look to see if there's bipartisan support. When I saw Wyden team with Ryan, I thought, wow, we might get some entitlement reform.
Absolutely.
When I saw Senator Blumenthal with you yesterday, I thought this was interesting because he wasn't marching to anybody's talking points. Cut 23.
Is very strong support for the kinds of initiatives that we saw in Libya. And Libya is a model for how we can aid rebels. But let me emphasize, Chris, no American troops, none, no American troops on the ground in direct aid that will bolster that opposition.
So he was saying help Syria, but don't put troops on the ground.
You picked a good soundbite. He was great on Fox yesterday with Chris Wallace. He said that the president says all options are on the table, but nobody takes him seriously. They should. Mr. President, when you say that, the Iranians need to believe it. He said that Assad needs to go. He's willing to allow the Arab League and others to arm the opposition forces to use the Libyan model. The Senate cannot agree that the sun rises in the east domestically. But when it comes to Iran, he's on the resolution saying containment of Iran is a no-go. It's not an option. He embraced Sunday the idea of using military force, the international community, using military force to take Assad down. Bipartisanship is breaking out on national security at a time when it really matters.
All right, let's go to Afghanistan now. What did you find? How many times have you been to Afghanistan, Senator Brown?
A dozen. I do my reserve duty there. I actually work in Parwan Prison. I'm a member of Task Force 435. That's where Colonel Graham works.
So you stop being a senator and you go there and become a colonel?
I do my reserve duty a couple of times a year in Afghanistan, 6 to 8 days, sometimes 2 weeks. But the men and women who work in that prison are the ultimate patriots. It is a hard place to work.
And that's where the Qurans were found and destroyed.
Let me just tell you, General Huber, who's in charge of Task Force 435, he's my boss. We train everybody up on the religious sensitivities of Islam, their diet, the ability to pray. We do a very good job of trying to be sensitive to Islam. What happened here is that the prisoners were passing notes in the library material, some of which were Qurans, and they're not choir boys in that prison. We have 3,044 prisoners in Parwan prison under American control, under the law of armed conflict, and Karzai is suggesting that we have to turn all those prisoners over to Afghanistan before he'll do a strategic partnership agreement. In case he's listening to Brian's show, Mr. President, Mr. Karzai, President Karzai, we will never turn these prisoners over to your legal system, which is porous and immature, and allow these guys we've caught multiple times to go back to killing our soldiers.
Like when they tunneled out of the last prison.
At Kandahar, where I visited as part of the 435 operations. We want Afghan sovereignty. We want it to be done in a way that we can win the war and not go too far too fast. So I've been in the prison. This was an inadvertent act, and the idea that American soldiers who've left their families, the safety of their country, to go to Afghanistan to help the Afghan people, and they be murdered because of an inadvertent act of burning a religious document is unacceptable, and it shows you how Islam has to change in Afghanistan. But having said that, I go there. I've been there dozens of times.
You think we're going to get past this?
Yes. General Allen is the equal to General Petraeus, and that's saying a lot. President Obama withdrawing the surge forces in September rather than the end of 2012 puts pressure on General Allen's military campaign to go after the Haqqani network. We've delivered a crushing blow to the Taliban. We've got them on their knees. If we'll just stay patient, the Afghan security forces are almost at 300,000. There are 35 million people in Afghanistan. The snapshots of what you see on TV do not represent the country as a whole. These anger outbursts, killing of our soldiers, breaks my heart. But strategically, we can't afford to be emotional. And I understand why conservatives and liberals are tired of Afghanistan. The enemy wants us to be tired. They want to take episodes like this and drive America out. They want conservatives to throw up their hands and say, the hell with these people. It's not about these people, it's about us. If we can secure Afghanistan, leave in 2014 in a way the Taliban can never come back, that is a huge blow to al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and we can do that.
Do you think Panetta and President Obama understand what you're saying?
I think Panetta does. I think President Obama is conflicted. He sees a war-weary republic. He sees his re-election coming. What I would do is what Bush did. Bush was unpopular with the American people. Iraq was unpopular, but he went in to win with the surge. He doubled down. So just give General Allen the time and the resources he needs. The game plan is to leave substantially in 2014. But there's three things that need to happen before the end of May for us to be successful in Afghanistan long term. The Strategic Partnership Agreement is a document to be signed that will exist after Karzai leaves in 2014. He is not a very good leader in my view. So we got to think about Afghanistan post-Karzai. I want a relationship with Afghanistan politically, economically, and militarily such that the country will never go back into the terrorist hands. With 20,000 troops or less, strategically located at Kandahar, Bagram, up north, out west, air bases, with American air power and special forces units, it would be the ultimate insurance policy. With that configuration left behind past 2014, the Afghan security forces, with our help, will never lose a fight with the Taliban.
Do you know today's report that the CIA might have control of it after 2014?
I think that is not. I want to have an open relationship. I want our people to have Geneva Convention protections. The CIA is a big player, but I want a relationship where we have air bases so the Taliban never come back, and that would be a signal to Iran, to Pakistan, quit betting on the Taliban.
Do you, and finally...
And Karzai is making it hard by saying we got to turn over these prisoners and stop night raids. Night raids are punishing the Taliban. We own the night militarily. I know it's disruptive at times throughout Afghanistan, but we're not going to give that right up.
And I've talked to a lot of special forces as you, and they have to now bring an Afghan with them on all these raids.
This is good. We want the Afghans with us. We want them in the lead. We want them knocking down the doors, not us. But we want it. They don't have pilots. They don't have helicopters. We want to get that guy out of the house and look at his computer and look at his cell phone and take him to Parwan and question him for days. We're never going to give that up. The day we give that up is the day we lose against the enemy.
All right, and finally, can you characterize, in all your years in the Senate, can you characterize currently our relationship with Israel accurately, to the best you can?
It is at a low ebb, focusing on the settlements, talking about 67 borders, openly leaking stories about urging Israel not to attack Iran, has created a level of distrust unlike I've seen before, and it needs to start being repaired starting today in Washington.
And hopefully they do.
Hopefully it will be repaired. I want to help. I want to beat Obama, and we can, no matter what you hear. He's very vulnerable. He has not been a very effective president. But between now and November, if he feels like we need to engage Iran, I want to let him know there'll be bipartisan support.
I believe that you guys have all made that clear with some of those overwhelming votes. Yeah. Senator Lindsey Graham, you're off to a more important talk right after this.
I'm talking to your boss, Roger Ailes, about how we need to pay you more.
Now, thank you very much. And what channel will that be on?
That will be a secret meeting, probably never heard from again.
You better have a second point to your agenda.
Please pray, Brian Moore.
It's going to be a short meeting. All right, Senator Graham, always great to have you, and thanks for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And we'll look forward to talking to John McCain later next hour.
Brian Kilmeade, 1/3 of Fox and Friends, 100% of Kilmeade and Friends.